Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started because it's 6:30 and it's cold and I want to go home to my bed. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Executive Committee for Community Board 3, Thursday, November 19th, 2020. Um, I'd like to first start off with a roll call and approval of the previous month's minutes.
Um, Alicia, I just made one change to the minutes, so do we need to
Oh, yes,
adopt them with the change?
with the exceptions to the minutes, we had an amendment.
Yes. I missed one of Michael's statements last month, and I had to add it in. It was anodyne though. It was about how the BOE was asking people to be aware that drop-off boxes for their absentee ballots were only inside polling stations, so also no longer relevant, but maybe for next year. So that's what we added to the minutes. With that in mind, I will do roll call. Alicia.
Yes, here. Yes.
Michael Marino.
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan.
Yes.
Eric Diaz. Still on here. Okay. Michelle Cooper Smith. Yes, present. Herman Hewitt. I'm not seeing him. Okay. Anisha is absent. She's going to join around 7, she said. Mei Lee.
Hello. Yes.
Thank you.
Michelle, don't mark Anisha absent. She'll be here.
It's called another meeting for Community Board 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So how should I?
Just put
Mark
an
her.
asterisk and say another meeting.
Okay. Jackie Wong.
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Yes.
Alexandra Militano.
Yes.
Trevor Holland. I was trying to see your here. Thank you. Paul Rangel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, well, I would prefer if you kept it off.
All right. So first, I would like to just take a minute to say thank you to all of you for all the work that you've done in support, and the support you've given me over the past couple of years. And I want to thank you for serving your community and our community, actually. And it's just greatly appreciated for everything that you all do. So, and then we're still in the midst of this storm called COVID, all right? During the spike of COVID-19, I'd like to ask each of you to just check in with your committee members as much as you possibly can. I mean, I'm not asking you to go out of your way, but I want you all to just be mindful that it's holiday season and a lot of people are going through not being able to get out for the holidays, visiting their relatives. Some people are going to be alone for the first time for the holidays. And this is something that, none of us were prepared for during this time, right? We all just thought COVID was just going to be like, go away, right? And it hasn't. And now we see that the numbers are spiking again. It's not even a second wave. We're still dealing with the first wave, as the governor said today. And so I just want to ask you to reach out to people on your committees, text, email, whatever, just check in, just, hey, how you doing? Maybe, if they're alone and they're alone, maybe just, a quick phone call just to check in, something of that sort. That's all I'm asking. And that leads me into the holiday season is among us. We are ready for holidays and here we go. And there's like no party, but we can have a virtual party. How about that, right? We can have some type of virtual gathering on a Zoom meeting to celebrate of some sort, like I think it's important to be festive. I think it's important for us to be connected, even though we're so far away and I can't touch you and say hi and everything. But I think it's just important for us to just spend an amount of time just getting related, as they say, right? And so I'm looking into like some sort of like, I don't know, like a Zoom where maybe we can invite members that know how to play an instrument or sing a song or say a poem. I mean, we have artists that sit on our board and we have some dancers that sit on our board. And I just, I think that we should tap into some of those wonderful, resources and turn it into a fun couple of hours, just spending time, having our own CB3 little show or something. I don't know. Well, we can talk about it and you guys let me know how you feel about that. And then the last thing I wanted to say is like, this is the time of year that traditionally the community board does something for the staff. It's holiday time. We normally do a collection for them. And, for whatever reason, I don't know what people are going through financially. I know we all have different needs or whatever, but we normally give them a gift of gratitude. And it's that time of year. I don't, want to tell you how much to give, right? But we know that we have a few staff members, right? And all of their names. As a suggestion, I would say a check could be written from each of you, or if you have some type of Cash App, and you could send it to me and I can go and get the gift cards and I can give them their gift cards, or I can mail them their gift cards as we traditionally do. And if in order for that to happen, we have to have a time frame to make that happen so it could get to them before the Christmas holiday or the Hanukkah holiday happens, which I think Hanukkah is the second week in December this year. I'm not quite sure. I'll double check. I have to double check. Okay, I don't want to make a statement, but I do know that it is important for us to acknowledge everyone's work and the work that they do. And I do know on other community boards that they give a generous amount of money. I'm not suggesting that you have to go, give an abundant amount of money. But as a suggestion, I would suggest that we each try to give at least $20 a piece, or, whatever you feel compelled in your heart to give. I'm also going to extend it to the full board as well and ask them the same thing, if they would be willing to contribute gifts of gratitude to the staff during this time of year. And so I will send you an email with a link, I guess, telling you exactly the address to mail. If you're going to send me a check, then it has to be a certain time frame. You have to get the checks because I have to deposit them and then cash them out and do, all of that, the banking stuff, right? And if it's going to be a Cash App or a Zelle, if any of you have anything like that, then it can be directly taken care of. So I can send you a link. I'll make sure that that email goes out before the full board, and everyone will know exactly how to get money to me so I can mail out gift cards and gifts of gratitude is what we're going to call it. Okay.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Or just a comment? I'm assuming in the past, pre-COVID, the gift cards were given to the staff members in person.
Yes.
So I would suggest, just for safety and security reasons, rather than mailing them a gift card, to do a digital gift card that you can just email to them.
So I'm not really sure how many of them know how to use that type of, I know that we have one staff member that struggles in that department. But I do, yeah, I know, of one issue that we will have with one person, but that is a good suggestion, Michael. And noted.
May has her hand up if you're
Yes,
still taking
I
questions.
didn't see your hand, I'm sorry.
I don't know how to put my hand down. Well, I'm sure that one person who has, I'm sure that, I know there's two of them that probably are pretty good with whatever digital thing you give them, but the one person, maybe that one person, we could somehow hand it to them, or mail it to them. But, I just had a question. Actually, what did, last year, how much did we give them?
So we gave them $100 a piece. We were able to collect enough to give each one $100.
And it was just,
It was a
okay, so this year we're expanding it to the board, right?
Yes, we're asking,
Okay.
yes, we're gonna ask everyone on full board.
And do you think that $100 is a sort of a decent amount for this year, or would you like to see more?
I mean, I'd love to give as much as we possibly can. I mean, to support them. I mean, I don't know what people's like I said, I don't know what people's struggles are during the holiday season or any season at all, because, you know, we're still in the midst of COVID and people have extra expenditures that they wouldn't ordinarily have. I know I have, having to buy extra things to clean my home and stuff like that. So I'm open to any suggestion, May. Is there anyone that has anything else to say?
Could I,
No,
can
I
you
just wanted to know.
clarify that it's support staff?
Susan, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
said, could you clarify that it's support staff?
It's support staff.
Does that include the assistant district manager?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, now we'll go on to the timeline review. So I don't know if many of you are aware, we have this timeline that was nicely, helpfully created to help us move along throughout our monthly, what we should be doing on the timeline. It says that right now, we are getting ready for elections of executive officers. In November, we were supposed to be planning our holiday party, and then December is the holiday party. Periodically, I think it's important for us to look over the timeline because there's other things on here besides the end of year events. We do have things that perhaps maybe we should edit and add things to the timeline as a suggestion. I'm not really sure of, you know, what else you would suggest that could be added to the timeline. Do all of you remember seeing the timeline? And yes? Okay, so do you all need to be reminded of what it says or looks like? No, okay. So if you're able to pull it up, which is under our members resources as well, I believe it's in there and on the website. So I just want you to look over it periodically and just add as needed so it continues to help the board progress and whoever transition into the position, okay? All right. I think that's it. That's all I have to say about the timeline. I would suggest that maybe one of the first vice chair or the second vice chair would be in charge of looking over the timeline periodically. Michelle, I'd like that added to the minutes. That, okay? All right, next, first vice chair's report.
I don't really have much to report. I know there were some Zoom issues earlier this month with some meetings, and I see that it's on the agenda to talk about later, so I'll wait till then. But I do have kind of a clarifying question or an opinion question I want to ask the group. So are the CB3 contact list that we get has language on it that says it's for CB3 members for CB3 work. So my question is, what are people's definition of work? Because I fear that the list has been used for purposes other than CB3 work. Does anybody have an opinion on that?
We've used it for the nominating committee, but I think that's CB3 work.
Oh, no doubt the nominating committee is work, but it is work people running for election using that list to call and email people?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Okay, that is happening.
Traditionally, it always has been. Maybe we should clarify we should clarify because, you know, it has been, I think, almost every year. So I think they consider it CB3 stuff. But if you want to clarify it, I'll change the language on the top.
I think it should be clarified. I'm interested in other people's opinions.
We have a CB3 contact list? Is that something that's...
It's available to anyone that requests it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think in the past, people were using it for things that had nothing related to CB3. So the language on there is actually my language based on what the exec years ago decided. And I think it was like I say, it was meant to be related to CB3, but, I'll change it to whatever people want.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
Question, Susan, you say that it's available to anyone. Is that also foilable?
No, our policies absolutely do not allow that.
Okay, so it's only available to CB3 members.
Yes. Our policies say we don't give out personal information outside the board.
And it's meant so that we can be in touch with one another. It's got a phone number, it's got an email address.
Yeah.
Normally, you wouldn't use the whole list. You'd use it to find somebody you wanted to, talk to.
People make committee lists from them. They send out information to everybody. If I'm not sending it out to everybody, somebody else might, do that, but it has to be CB3 related information.
May, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, so I walked away for a second. You said something about elections, Michael. I guess you meant partisan politics, like, that's what you meant those, right?
No, I'm talking about our elections, about people
Oh, okay.
using our contact list to campaign for our election coming up next week.
Well, if they're CB3 members, I think that is board business. But anyway, usually, is it just how it's used, or specifically about the elections that you're asking?
I'm asking specifically how it's used, because right now, again, at the conversation you missed, the language is very vague. It just says that it's meant only for CB3 work. So what is the definition of work? Are CB3 elections work?
I believe,
Yeah, I think it is.
I believe it is. It is.
And I think it should be available to all CB3, all candidates are CB3 members.
Yeah.
So I believe it is. And, aside from the other stuff.
And if I can get a little more neutral, Michael, is it appropriate for people to use it for campaigning for their office they're running for in a CB3 election, to mail everybody? And that's the question, I think.
Or some subset of everybody.
Well, of
Yeah,
course.
sometimes it's a subset. Nobody talks to me, but that's okay. I'm fine with being left alone.
Yeah, it's a legitimate question. It could go either way. We just have to decide.
Lisa, you've got your
Are we asking about the list, or are we also asking about the phone numbers? Because if we're sending emails, does that extend to people calling people?
Yeah, I think it extends to using the list. What are you using the contact list for?
I know, like, to piggyback on what Susan said before, I know we had an incident where there was a board member that was doing personal work and emailing all of the community board. So I know in the past, that was something that we discussed that we did not think that
That's clear, right? If I were to suck up that list and throw it into the Seward Park Conservancy list, that would be wrong.
Right.
Not a community board use.
But if
It's about a gray area.
for board business, which I believe our election is board business, that
Lisa, you've had your hand up for a while. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarity. It seems to me the question that was asked was, do we want that it to be clearer what we mean by board work? And I think definitely we do. I'm hearing among the people that are talking now that there were differences of opinion on the issue of whether or not it should be used for election-related campaigning.
so we need to change the wording.
Yes, so my point is, the question is, how would we change it? I think definitely we should change it. So, and Susan indicated that, well, maybe she didn't, but just by the fact that she said that she had written it, and that she understood that it did include campaigning, maybe we could ask her to, what she thought might be appropriate to make that clear.
Susan?
So I think you're saying language that would include campaigning and maybe would be used only for CB3 related activities. or CB3 related, yeah, that's what I'd say, CB3 related activities. And I think it used to also say that it should not be distributed outside the board, which is probably also a good thing to add.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. For internal board members use only and for activities and issues related to board matters, something like that.
May I see your hand?
So, you know, Tariq is in the attendee pile, but he actually asked a good question in the chat box. Is the is the member list provided to all candidates?
Yes.
Do you want to do that to make it like a even playing field? So that like the candidates have access to the voters, to all the voters, all of them? It's not like they have to go ask the office for it.
I could send it out to everybody, the whole board, if you want me to.
I personally think that's fair.
Susan, I think that's fair. Go ahead and send it out to everyone.
Okay, could you put in minutes the language you decided should be on there?
I'm sorry, I missed that. We're saying we want to send out the entire CB list to all CB3 members,
Right,
as opposed to someone asking for it.
right.
Okay.
I guess one question I have about that list is what's on it?
I have two lists. One is for members and one is for the office, and the office has, some people have off their work numbers that they don't want distributed. So it has the address, name, address, phone number, and email, but it's
Do we send out everyone's address to everybody?
It's you know, I'm happy to do whatever you guys want.
I'm just going to give my opinion. I prefer a second step, meaning that someone has to ask you for it, because it is available to all CB3 members. I think it's just weird to send out a list right now with everyone's name, number, phone number, home address. I think not everybody wants it, but if we could just, you know, it's not, if someone needs it, you can, I'd rather the email say, if you need a list, you know, you can just ask the office for it.
I can send out an email saying the list is available. I'll put Ed in the CC, say just email Ed if you'd like a copy. And then also include in the text the language on how it should be used or what it can be used for.
Jackie,
Are you guys comfortable with the home address on it?
That's what I want to ask.
Yeah, I don't
a little bit. I kind of don't want it either. I don't mind the phone number, but you know, or the email. I mean,
in the old days, people used to send letters, but they
Yeah,
don't need to do that.
I understand why you'd want maybe to get an understanding of what neighborhood people live in, but like having their home address. I mean, I understand it's an Acris for most, like if you're a homeowner, but like most people don't go into Acris to find people's home addresses. So maybe if the list that's sent out to any CB3 members would only have email address and phone numbers, I think that's probably safer for everyone, right?
Okay.
Okay, I want to note this all in the minutes.
And Herman is with us, but he doesn't have the ability to speak, so he's typing messages in the chat. And he is saying that he'd rather the list be requested rather than sent out to everybody.
Okay, so I'll send an email saying it can be requested and this is what it can be used for.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, second vice chair's report.
Sorry. The only thing I wanted to report was that the letters were sent out to the 3 people that were identified as not meeting the required number of attendances, and I gather that everybody's trying to correct that. I think it's been acknowledged by everyone who received the letters. The one question that I had was the decision, apparently, I don't know if it was a deliberate decision, but anyway, the procedure had been in the past that attendance at the nominating committee was not included in calculation of the total number of required meetings, so it didn't get reflected in the percentage. I don't think it made a huge difference, but it just seemed to me that every meeting, if somebody is on a committee, they should be, that committee should also be counted in the tally. I didn't quite understand why nominating committee wouldn't be if something like personnel committee was. So Susan suggested that I put this on the agenda for the exec to talk about whether they wanted for in the future for the nominating committee meetings to be recorded and counted in the computation.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an oversight. We never did it last year and we didn't do it this year. I can provide that information, but.
If you'd like, I can give some context.
Yes.
Okay, so it used to be nominating committee was a regular public meeting and it was on the agenda and it had attendance. And I think several years ago, it was back when Scott was borough president, I remember, the nominating committee 1 or 2 years in a row just had trouble scheduling their meeting in time, so it didn't get on the agenda. So we went to Scott's lawyer, Jimmy Yan, and asked if it had to be on the agenda, and he said no, because there was no positions, no voting. It was simply information gathering. So what happened, so the attendance was not purposeful. So what happened is when it no longer went on the agenda and Deidre was making up the minute templates, there was nothing there for her to make up a minute template. So you have a couple of options if you want to change it. You can make it a regular meeting that will go on the public agenda, and then Deidre would automatically send a minute template, or you can schedule them the way you're scheduling them now, but the chair could send us the attendance.
I prefer that because it's a little bit informal how many meetings you need, when you need them. You can't sort of say, okay, this month we need one and next month we need one, etc. So I prefer to just send the attendance to whoever. But that's my preference. I hopefully won't have this job next year.
Well, my question, Linda, actually was, so what is the meeting frequency? Like, are you guys meeting more than once a month, or are you meeting once a month?
We have met on a kind of an ad hoc basis. So when we felt we needed to.
I mean, it makes sense to me that if board members are devoting their time
typically 3, maybe 4 meetings in the whole process,
May, got your hand out.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying I used to chair the nominating committee. I think it was 1 time or 2 times. And yeah, I agree with Linda. It's just to get the job done, and it's as many meetings as you need. That's all it is.
It's basically just to share out the work, there's not much decision making involved. This year there was because of the ballots, but.
Well, it's just like when I chaired the nominating committee and we had people that would come in and sit in on our meeting. And I hear that some people feel as though that's not necessary for people to come in, but all of our meetings are public. And, it's not encouraged because it's like, what are you talking about? Just the committees, nominating whoever, and, people get an opportunity to see firsthand how the board does their nominations. So, I don't know.
So the borough president's office under Scott said it wasn't necessary to have it as a public meeting because there's no input, no community voice, no decisions, no votes, that kind of thing. It was information, it was housekeeping.
Yeah, exactly.
But isn't that a separate question than the one that is on the floor right now, which is whether it should be included in the attendance?
I think it would be to the benefit of the members to be included in the attendance. It is your work.
Yeah, I was just suggesting there's different ways you could do it. One is to make it a regular meeting, or the other is to have the committee chair be responsible for sending them the attendance.
Well, personally, I don't see any reason to change the way it's publicized now, but I do think it should be included in the attendance.
So why don't we just have the committee chair, report it out to you or to whoever is in charge of keeping track of the attendance?
No, they should send it to Deidre because Deidre makes the attendance sheet.
Oh, Deidre, okay.
What Linda Jones said.
That's fine. I'll send it to Deirdre.
Okay.
Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Lisa. Treasurer's report.
No money spent.
Herman can't talk, so there hasn't been any money spent. Am I correct, Susan?
Right, there's just the rent. It's basically the rent.
Okay. Okay, thank you. District manager's report.
Okay, a couple of things. First, this is just an FYI, so people understand what goes on. The 12 community boards are being audited. The Comptroller's Office audits us every year on different things. This year, it's going to be open meeting law and which includes a lot of information, which we all have. First round of requests have all been on the website, so it's been easy. And just sort of FYI, every year it's different things. Sometimes it's petty cash. Sometimes they go as far as like when we order material at the end of the year, it has to be received before the next fiscal year. And they've actually looked for receipts on $50 items to make sure they're received in time. So it's various things, and we always do well, and it's just sort of an FYI. There's a new, the city agencies are really concerned and very concerned, very scared about the uptick. It's not being taken lightly. There is a new Manhattan director of tracing and testing. She had a meeting with the Manhattan district managers. May was on the meeting. And it was to give us information and also ask our help in making contacts. They will be working with nonprofits, both under contract and under volunteer, and then doing other outreach, which will include bids, it will include community groups. As a first step, I've connected them with Lower East Side Ready because I thought that was a natural. May and I talked about having some other board members involved because it may end up just being, a lot of work, and other people might have more expertise. And this would be, I would think, human services issues, economic development, because of outreach to bids and businesses. And May, can you remember what else, or if there was anything else we were considering?
I had mentioned the NYCHA subcommittee because, NYCHA residents are, important to be out,
So what I would like, it's not a very formal thing. It's a question of acting like a rep, like some of the reps to some of the meetings we go to. If there could be a rep from each of those committees who might be available when called on to help connect or give information, if we could ask, those three committees particularly to, ask to have one of them, either the chair or one of the members be available. So what do people think? May, would you do that for your committee?
Yeah, I would, or if I'm not available to attend the meeting, then I'll see who else is. But I think also they generally wanted our, our zip codes, or the uptick is not the highest compared to other zip codes like in Brooklyn or Queens or the Bronx. So, but it's still important for us to do outreach and be preventive. So there's, and they kind of want our help in doing that.
Being proactive is terribly important. And one thing Michelle and I have actually been emailing about. So they have all these community partners already. They gave us the list. There are many religious organizations on it. There's not a single synagogue on the list. And I think 2 weeks ago, we just had a funeral on East Broadway that had hundreds and hundreds of people. So, you know, we need to give them this information if we're, you know, don't have as much of an impact. And we're not the lowest group either. We're not the highest, but we're also not in the lowest group of testing positive. So anyway, Michelle has offered to help. Anisha's probably not on yet. I'll contact her. Jackie, do you think you could speak to someone in NYCHA subcommittee? Because, you know, I get questions about like tenant association contacts and that kind of thing.
I could share the information on the NYCHA subcommittee.
Okay, just to get a person, that we can work with, or an old person and an alternate. And I'll ask Anisha. I'm sure she'll be happy to do it, but I don't think she's on yet. I think she's in the other meeting. So on that order, there's tremendous amount more complaints than we've ever seen, which I've said before. A lot of it is because of Open Street, and it's not because people are against the Open Street. It's because of the lack of enforcement, which I know a lot of that is because of lack of guidance to the businesses. Noise is a huge issue, and it's not just our board. People are really upset about roving bands. I've even had businesses email me about the roving bands because they're very loud brass bands that could be heard a block away. The illegal amplified music that is on the street that nobody will take responsibility for enforcing. I finally got the 5th precinct to create a protocol to first speak and warn the businesses about it, but the other 2 precincts are not doing that. Well, I've been talking about this since it's an open street with Paul, so he'll have more to say about it. But I think the biggest problem right now is the street enclosures, because people are enclosing them on all sides, and they're making them enclosed, and they're making them worse than indoor dining because there's no ventilation. There's no standards for ventilation. This has been reported in New York Times. I've reported consistently to the Department of Health. Everyone agrees it's a problem. If you enclose an outdoor enclosure, it should then be 25% capacity with ventilation guidelines, which no one knows what they are. And this is not happening. And I think with the uptick, it's a really serious issue. And I was on a nightlife city meeting for businesses yesterday, and they had DOB, DOT, health department, nightlife, and people were asking these questions and they were getting bad information. I understand why the businesses are doing it. They were given wrong information, inadequate information. They were being asked, the agencies were being asked questions, and they were sitting there like a deer in headlights. So it's a real problem. Some people have heard about the nightlife and the Oath Agency now pushing mediation in the community. There was a lot of concern because it was associated with a lot of SLA issues, and there was particularly concern about stipulations, and we couldn't get any information on there, couldn't get someone to listen. But then Oath was a different workshop for the district managers, and we complained that we hadn't had any input, and that commissioner, to her credit, said, okay, you won't give input. And she had a special meeting for us, which was yesterday, and I think we ironed it a lot. They have guaranteed us that none of their mediations will affect any stipulations. We're trying to work out a procedure where they will come to the community boards for stipulations. So I feel like it was a very productive meeting, and I just wish the other agencies would act the same. And my last item is let you know the office is going to be closed Friday after Thanksgiving. All the staff members are taking a vacation day. So that's it, unless there's questions.
Any hands? I don't see any hands.
Okay.
No hands.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Susan. Okay, next week. Oh, Paul, you have your hand up? I didn't see Paul's hand.
Yeah, I couldn't get to it in time. I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to ask Susan a question. Has she or the office received any complaints from Haven Plaza about the heating issues going on there? I know Carlina's office and even Congresswoman Velasquez's office has been asking about it. I don't know if CV3 office has heard about it.
We have not. Often those kinds of issues will go to the council office and not the board office. But if we do get them, just sort of FYI, we don't want to duplicate work. And what we try and do is work with the council office on it. So, you know, if we do get them, what I'll do is I'll coordinate with the council office.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Susan? Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the next item, which is the nominating committee report. Linda?
So nominating committee is all set to go next Tuesday. We have a ballot which was distributed, I think, a copy of it. We have a process which people can follow. People will get an email in the afternoon of the full board meeting, and they will be asked to wait to vote until after they've heard the presentations. And then we'll take time out so people can go vote. And we haven't quite figured out, you know, the counting procedure. We'll have 2 people count the votes so that we have 1 person plus a verification, and then we'll announce the vote.
Any questions for Linda or comments?
I'm just going to jump on that really quick. Needless to say, the copy that was put into our agenda for tonight or in the email, it's not going to look like that. It's going to look much prettier. It's going to be much more simpler to navigate when I do send it out. I will send it out at the appropriate time, and I guess I'll get the responses at an appropriate time too, and we'll do the counts as Linda instructs.
Okay, it hasn't been sent out yet. It's being sent out tomorrow with the vote sheet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
It was sent out to the exec committee earlier today, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it runs, if you, the PDF runs much longer than the vote, than the form, the Google form does. The Google form is quite compact.
And Paul, I think we had talked about this last time, but so there's also going to be like one of you on the phone to deal with people who are having technical difficulty.
Yes, that would be me as well. I will be taking those calls for technical difficulties and any other sorts of cheering up I could get during that process.
When we send the information to the board members tomorrow, do you want us to put a few lines about that? I think, you know, I'm afraid some people might be intimidated by the process when we just send it out.
Yeah, we were going to put more information in the email itself about, you know, how it goes, but I guess we could supply you with some language.
Oh, you're also, I just think ahead of time, it might be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we'll be sending it out probably after lunch tomorrow. If you could just send me a line or 2 to put in the email.
Okay, we'll work on that. And I want to give Paul a little hero badge because he's done very great work developing the form and putting his skills to work for us, and we really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you.
And we'll all be sure to tell you how pretty it looks. Don't worry.
I just want the badge. Now that I heard that there's a badge involved, I think I just want a badge. Thank you.
Who's going to work on designing the badge? You're the only person who can do that.
I'll find a sheriff's badge somewhere. Don't worry. I'll find one. Thank you.
Borrow mine if you want.
Oh, that's right. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Alicia, can I ask how soon can the voting take place? Is it in the afternoon or it has to wait till
It's when it opens up. They'll let the full board know when it opens up.
We were anticipating that if this were the real world, we would have the presentations and then we would distribute the ballots so that people would listen to the presentation before they voted. So we're trying to emulate that.
And the ballots are coming through email, correct? It's the form, the Google form?
It will be a link.
No, via link. I have backup plans just in case it fails for some people with getting the email. So I do have a backup plan in terms of if people need to reach out to me and how to send it to them. So I do have some alternative options, like dropping off a bunch of ballots in Philadelphia or Atlanta. That's the other plan. I'm sorry about that, guys.
Oh, we have to send them to Germany.
I have an unused garbage can.
What if any fail safes or whatever in place if somebody votes, but they're actually not present at the meeting, since the ballot is getting sent out ahead of time?
That's a good question.
Very good question.
I guess we could match it up to the attendance.
I was kind of hoping sending it out at 6:30, not exactly right before, but I'll wait for more guidance if there's a better way of sending it out. If I can literally just hit send at the time everybody's done with their presentations, I can just hit send at that point, or I'll take whatever recommendations.
Michael,
And I can send you the vote sheet, Paul.
exactly. If we had the attendance at opening, Michelle, then we could compare who voted to that attendance.
Right, yeah. Well, we take it once we are done with all the elected officials reports and everything, and then I can just send that to you, Paul, once it's once I collate it, if that works.
That's right. There's no absentee ballots in Community Board 3.
It's not a problem. It's ready to go right now. We can have fun right now, but
Let's vote now. Get it over with.
but I'll hit send right after I get that the attendance sheet on Tuesday.
Hey, Paul, do you plan to have it on when you send it out, or are you going to turn it on when we say the voting starts? You know what I mean? I mean, accepting the responses.
I will have it. I'll have two screens going. I'll be like CNN. I'll probably like start matching up the colors of the map and everything like that right at the same time. I'll have two screens going. One with obviously the meeting going on, and then two having the responses come in.
But you know, you can block. You can. They don't have to come in. You know what I mean, right?
What she's referring to, Paul, is in Google Forms, you can have the form, you can send the form out, but have a setting on it that it can't accept responses. And then once you open the voting, you can unlock that setting so that it can start accepting responses.
Okay. Yeah, no, I thank you for clearing that up. Yes, I'll make that work.
We could do that.
Yeah.
Because just sending at 6:30 doesn't prevent people who are not at the meeting from not voting.
I can also propose, this sucks because of the way the chat works on here, of posting the link in the chat. I could legitimately do that instead, but that may be a little bit more tricky. But I don't want to do that, especially with the public being on and how our chat setup is.
Yeah, you're gonna have everybody voting.
Yeah, I think, and Herman is chiming in the chat. He's saying that vote sheets should be matched to the beginning and ending attendance reports.
Well, what if somebody votes and then leaves?
Yeah,
right.
I think it's more importantly for the beginning reports for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the voting's right at the beginning.
Okay. Now we're going to move on. If there's no more comments or hands raised, anybody have anything else to say? Let's see. That's it. Okay. Next item on the agenda is this draft reso. Michael, do you have a copy of that? Thank you. Okay. So I believe Lisa and Linda worked on this.
Yeah, should I give a little background? We talked about it last month, and it was just the issue of making it clear if and when there would be limitations when an agenda item was on a committee agenda, whether or not a resolution wasn't expected or could be entertained. This is the suggestion for making it really clear. If the purpose, the way it's written is generally to make it possible for a vote to be taken unless it's expressly determined that it should not be. And that would call for information purposes only being part of the agenda item when there would be absolutely no resolution taken. Otherwise, the committee could always, by consensus or vote, determine that they did not want to, on any particular item, have a resolution if there was a motion to make one. But that generally, if an item is on the agenda, it could result in a resolution. So that's how this was worded.
So Lisa, can I ask I guess a clarifying question on this? So like in parks, for instance, we have our park manager come to the meeting every month and he gives an update on construction projects in the parks and stuff that's going on in the parks throughout the district. So, and it's usually just informational, people asking questions, whatever. So under this language, that now would need to be listed as park manager update for information purposes only?
Only if you absolutely wanted to exclude the possibility of it ending in a resolution. Otherwise, it could be open to that. If the manager were to say something that prompted the committee to want to take an action, they could still do that. Or not. They could decide not to, but they would have to, there would be nothing that would preclude that.
That's a very good point, Michael. I think we're going to have to pay very close attention to any agenda item. I don't think this is exclusive to parks, but he did bring up a good point because we have that update every month, and it's really just informational purposes to update, parks, what parks is doing in terms of construction and opening up of dog runs. So I just want to make sure that the committee members are aware that we really need to pay attention to the agenda items if that is going to be policy.
I think this comes up particularly in land use, where an agency may be going to, at some future time, bring to us an issue that requires a vote, but they precede that with an informational presentation. And we would not generally take a vote on that informational presentation. We would wait for the later, full presentation. That may happen in transportation too.
Jackie?
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, who would decide that an item should be for information purpose only? I think that the chair of the committee should decide that, right? Not the manager. Okay, I just want to clarify that.
So could I just reiterate that the chairs have final say on everything on the agenda, always?
Okay. So do we need to vote separately, or do you want to vote to add this at the end when we all vote? Or yes, can I have some suggestions?
I'm fine if rolling this into the.
We'll vote all together.
Yeah, I'm fine rolling this into our vote at the end.
Okay, great.
I'm also, I don't understand though, because I feel like we could write a reso from something that's for informational purposes. Like it might not be informational once we hear it. Why would we limit ourselves?
If I could say, based on history, it's sometimes there's just not enough, either not enough information or not hearing from both sides. And that's why.
But how do we know that necessarily 100% ahead of time? That's what I mean. Once we're in the committee meeting, couldn't it
because
change?
this is what's the reason that it's come up in the past, because when you're there, you don't have people from both sides to give the, other perspectives, and you don't have all the research done. I know times when we don't do it anymore, but people used to come to full board and say, oh, this is an emergency, we have to vote on such and such. And then when you research it afterward, you find it's very different than what people thought.
Yeah, I guess it just means maybe this will be used very in a limited sense, but even putting for informational purposes only might deter people from coming if we're like trying to get more information. I don't know. I guess I just don't really understand why we need to do this, because like anything on the agenda could ostensibly have a reso if we felt strongly enough about it. I don't know.
I'll tell you what the feedback is. Well, first of all, you're not, I'm going to say 90% of the time, you're not prohibited from doing a reso. You could just put it on the next month. But the reason is more about, and I have gotten complaints, like when I saw update, I didn't realize there was going to be a vote, so I didn't come. So people want to know whether to be there. But you know, unless it's a time sensitive issue, which I'd say probably most of them aren't, you can vote on it. You just would put it on the next month.
Right, I understand that. It's just like it just seems like a weird thing to limit ourselves to, like, for no real reason. I don't know. I mean, that's my feeling about it. And if it's to make it so that people feel like they don't need to come for that portion, that seems, I thought that the point was to have community or the community at all points, but.
So my last thing I'll mention is what CB2 does. They put an asterisk on every agenda item that's going to have a resolution, and that's my last information.
Okay, Mei Lee has her hand up.
So yes, I think it is true, as Susan said, it's rarely used, but I will give you an example of how my committee used it, and it was last year. So it was the Mount Sinai Beth Israel transformation issue or downsizing. So the information didn't come to us just in one meeting, and we knew it wasn't going to be in one meeting. It would come out to us over many weeks and many months. So, and it did not deter people from coming to the meeting. The meetings were packed. So that's an example of something that's very long and complex.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't know, maybe the language for informational purposes only is not working for me. Like, I just feel like that would deter people for whatever, like.
What we usually put is informational presentation.
So maybe that's better, yeah.
That's what we always use.
Well, personally, I don't think that's clear that that no resolution could be made if it just says information, you know, like, I think it needs to be more direct if we're going to preclude a resolution.
Okay, whatever, you know, whatever you decide on.
I mean, I'm not wedded to those words if you can think of another. But you know, I just want, I don't want there to be a lack of clarity, because it's happened in the past that, you know, there was really not clear whether a resolution could be taken or not. I just think we have to be really direct about it.
Yeah, this is really the same thing as Community Board 2 does with its asterisk. And maybe that's more elegant, I don't know, but it's the same idea.
And then the asterisk explains what it's for at the bottom of every agenda?
They have an explanation that's not at all clear because I had to ask.
Well, we could do a much better one. We could do a much better, because I feel like maybe we could do like a asterisk and then say at the bottom, like, this is an informational presentation. A resolution will not be written from this. Like, then you have a little bit more latitude to explain what it means rather than trying to make it succinct because you're going to put it after each agenda item.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a big issue in December if you guys want to think about it and vote on specific language next month.
Well, I mean, so what are we saying? So that we're not going to, we'll work on the language a little further, or what?
I feel like, I mean, I apologize. I know that we've already discussed this at another meeting. I mean, if we could do just like unless the agenda item has an asterisk next to it, and then we can explain what that asterisk would say, and something that I guess resonates with me would be like informational presentation, no resolution is expected, something like that.
That totally works for me.
Okay.
Okay, if you'll just put in the minutes exactly, you know, what I should have as language on the agenda.
Okay.
And then I'll put the whole thing after the board votes, I'll put it under policy.
Okay, and I'll just share my screen.
Trevor has his hand up as well.
Trevor.
I think we also need to focus on why we were talking about this, and the transparency should err on the side of the community. I know that I have looked at agenda items and not really been aware that a resolution might affect my entire neighborhood, and this is also going to affect these types of sort of items that are on the agenda really sort of in underrepresented areas. It really needs to be clear what we're doing. I'll take the Clinton Street bike lane, for example, that runs between LaGuardia Housing. Folks did not realize that there was going to be a vote that was going to be taken. And the next morning they woke up and there were two-way bike lanes on their street. Not that there's anything against bike lanes, but they didn't get a chance to participate and give their opinion about it. So I think we need to focus on, in terms of transparency, to make sure that the public is aware of what we're doing. And some items are just informational, and some items we might take a position on.
Okay.
Okay, Michael, I can share my screen with the language if you, I'm share screen. So you don't ask me why there are 2 Michelle Cooper Smiths in there? Okay, thank you.
Unlike when I was in your transportation meeting this month, you were there, and then you were also there as Zoom master.
Yes, because I use my iPad for my face. It has better resolutions. Wait, but I still can't. It says host has disabled participant.
Oh, let me make you a co-host then. Hold on 1 second.
Thank you. You can all see my beautiful typing.
All right, there you go.
No, wait, I'm share screen. Not
What?
Michelle.
What?
I changed my name to share screen.
Oh.
So
Sorry.
I can share my screen.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what I wrote was informational presentation, no resolution expected.
I thought we were going to do the asterisk.
Has
though.
an asterisk, yeah. Has an asterisk on it with the explanation.
Should it say expected or will be taken? Expected sounds like it could still happen.
Yeah,
No resolution
that's good.
will be voted on. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe no resolution is enough.
Yes, simpler the
Okay.
better.
Yeah, I think that's enough.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know how to spell asterisk, apparently. That's something we learned today.
If it was me, I just would have put an asterisk in.
Fair enough.
All right, so again, I don't think I need to make an official motion, but I'm just going to say that I am fine with voting for this at the end when we do our final attendance, unless somebody disagrees with that.
I think that's fine, Michael. Does anyone have any objections to that? Okay, we're gonna move on. Thank you. Okay, next item is the proposed Zoom guidelines update. So really quickly, I received some feedback and a few calls from some elected officials who attend a few of our Zoom meetings, and sometimes items don't get heard by them because the meetings can be running a little longer than anticipated. And so thank you to Michelle for helping us come up with some guidelines that will be a little more helpful to help us set more standards for our meetings. So let's look at them. Michelle?
Yes. Okay. Okay, can everyone see the whole, this is the whole thing after the community will then formulate. So everyone should be able to see the whole suggested template here. So I am the vice chair of transportation. And so I run the Zoom meetings, and I think a lot of other vice chairs do the same. And I think now that we've been doing this for God knows how long, 9 months, we all have some learnings about what works best and what doesn't work best with Zoom. And I also spend my whole day on Zoom at my day job. And so one of the things that we've definitely identified as a place where things can get a little out of hand is the chat. So in these guidelines, you can see that I drafted, that we specify what the chat is for. The chat is for signing in and for describing any technical issues that you may have, not for discourse. To me, that people commenting in the chat, unless they have some sort of issue where they can't speak, is the same as someone shouting out in the middle of a meeting, which I don't think any of us would generally do if we were in person, and I don't think happened very much in CB3 when we were in person. So that's one, I think, important thing to keep here. If we, I obviously we'll discuss this, but this is my suggestions. I hope that this is pretty anodyne, keeping yourself muted unless you're speaking, and then instructions for how to do that. And then this part here, I know we had discussed this, I don't remember if it was last month or the month before, but about how we want people to quote unquote sign up to speak. I believe that every committee maybe did it a little bit differently, even when we were in person, but Susan had said that there are questions coming into the office about how people need to sign up to speak during committees. And I think just in the effort of transparency for the community, it would be good for us to adopt something that we can agree on, that every committee sort of has the same standards about how we will have people speak, just so that there's a standard kind of protocol. In transportation, we've been asking people to sign up by 7 p.m. and that's worked out pretty well. I know other committees allow folks to raise their hands, on a rolling basis, more or less. So I sort of included those two options here, highlighted in yellow. And then the other thing that we, at least in transportation, do is we make sure that we time people, which is, here in this first bullet, we'll have 2 minutes to speak, which I believe that in the past that's sort of been the standard in transportation with the sort of a discretion of the chair to ask committee members if they'd like to extend someone's speaking time. I think from my own experience, both in professional work and with community board, 2 minutes is generally enough time for people to make their points. If there is someone making a point that seems very important and they need to have more time, we could have the discretion to do that, right? But I think a lot of times when we let people speak, they'll fill the space, right? Like it's like kind of like a gas in a room, like it'll fill whatever space it's given. So putting some parameters on it with people having an expectation, and we do that at full board as well, I think, to pretty good effect. So I mean, I think I don't know, Paul, if you wanted to weigh in just about why we chose the 7 p.m. on transportation versus the raise your hand. But I do think that we should probably have a standard across all the committees, just so that people, have an expectation, like, so we have, set expectations for the community. And I believe, I don't know, Susan, have you spoken to any other of the boards about this? Like if they've set standards across the committees?
Well, I did. I polled the 12 boards when you brought this up today, and the ones I have, I forwarded to you.
Right. Okay. Well, do you want to just give a sum up? I think basically they do have standards, right?
Yeah.
Across the committees.
They do seem to have standards, and the issue of people talking and meetings going on too long is an issue shared by all the boards.
Okay, I see some hands, and I'm gonna go Paul, Linda, Trevor.
Linda and Trevor were ahead of me. I'll wait till after they're done.
Okay, because I know Michelle asked you to comment. Okay, no
I'll
problem.
chime in after them.
Okay, great. Okay, so Linda, and then Trevor, and then Paul, and then Alex. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, Michelle, just based on our previous conversation, you might want to make that last bullet, the committee may then formulate and pass a resolution.
Fair enough.
That's all for me.
Thank you.
Okay, Trevor.
I kind of think we discussed this before, but a 7 p.m. deadline for signing up is going to be a little difficult for parks and maybe other committees that have extensive agendas that go on for hours and hours, and it wouldn't change by 7 p.m. the amount of time we're going to spend It's just that if a person looks at the agenda, even though it can be changed, they may not want to sit to 2 hours of a meeting, so they can sort of guess, or sometimes they ask, when is this item going to come? When is this item going to be come up on the agenda? I know there's 2 bullet points about 7 p.m. I just don't think that works for every committee, and I don't think it would work for Parks Committee.
Yeah, I put that in there as like like that's why I highlighted in yellow, because I figured that would be the thing that we'd want to, discuss.
Right.
And sorry, my roommate is feeding our dog behind us. And how do you get people to sign up, like with their names and affiliation then because I think that's part of the reason that we do it in transportation, is to get like who the speakers are, similar to like a speaker form.
Parks is very lucky to have the best Zoom handler in all of Manhattan. That would be Michael. So it's extremely efficient. I have no issues, and I don't want him to ever leave that position, because I don't want to run the meeting ever. So we're very lucky to have that. So we have people sign up. It's actually been a little better when they sign up in the chat, because if we do it at the beginning, you might get 50 people who sign up who really don't want to speak. Whereas if you wait for the presentation to end, or when they listen to what the presentation is, it sort of dwindles down.
So you ask them to sign up like once the item comes up, basically? Like if someone wants to speak on this, please sign up now.
What we do, thank you, Trevor, for the compliment, by the way, but what we do is at the beginning of the meeting, as people are coming into the meeting and before we officially start it, I just constantly make announcements to people to sign into the chat for attendance purposes only.
Mm-hmm.
And then when an agenda item comes up, and I mean, I do a whole spiel, sort of similar to the spiel that I do at the beginning of full board. I tell everyone how the meeting is going to run. I say, please sign in for attendance purposes. This is the agenda. I usually paste the agenda in the chat field. And then I say, each agenda item is going to run like this. We'll have a presentation. The chair will take questions and comments from the community board members first. He will then open it up to questions and comments from members of the public. During this time, we use the raise hand feature. This is how you find the raise hands feature. So if you want to ask a question or make a comment after a presentation, please raise your hand. What we usually then ask them to do is, after the agenda item is done, it doesn't always work, but we try to ask them to not raise their hand until all of the questions are done from the community board members, so that community board members raising their hand don't get mixed in with the public members raising their hand. But we're not always successful with that. But that's been working for us pretty well.
And then what about having them sign in? Sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
I'm just going to follow Michael. I will say that if once the committee members ask their questions, that there are a lot of people who don't ask questions because their point has been made. It's, to be honest, the 2-minute statements by people have sort of dwindled, which has been nice, to be honest. So it's more about questions than it is about statements.
And do you ask them to sign into the chat though, once they, like, in addition to raising their hand, or do you just ask them to raise their hand and then you record the speakers?
Raise their hand.
Yeah.
And so what do you do for minutes then?
For who's asked a question? If it's a statement, then I put it in the minutes. But if it's just a question, sometimes it's summarized in the minutes, but we don't, the way we've done it, just by, I can't really explain it, but the way we've done it, we've eliminated a lot of the 2-minute statements because now people are just asking questions.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just wondering, like, part of the reason we ask people to sign into the chat is so that we can easily, like, at the bottom of the minutes, put in all the speakers with their name and affiliation rather than having to, like, take it off the, the Zoom screen.
Right. I'm not saying it's the best way or that it may work for every committee. I'm just saying for we've got coastal resiliency and parks and waterfront issues that go very late, that it works for that for our committee.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Paul was next, and then Alex and Maylee.
I want to say I have the best Zoom master in the entire city.
No, you don't.
Trevor. but we're gonna have a joint committee thing in December, so we can fight it out then. But I think after May 2020's committee meeting, Michelle and I had a conversation, because that was kind of how this all really came to fruition, how this all, like, setting up the guidelines. And I guess it's the running a school kind of thing in me that likes to go with a time deadline on signing up for stuff. And not that I want to limit the community and saying things, but we have this one group that keeps saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, that it beats the topic to death, that was extending the meetings out. And I guess I just wanted the sign up to be crisp and clear, and that I could go to members of the public pretty quickly and pivoting in the meeting. And that's why I wanted the 7 o'clock thing. If you're not there by 7 and signed up by 7, what's the point? You know, like, if you're really passionate about this certain agenda item, I expect, we start at 6:30 and we may be done by 6:45 with one agenda item. You just never know. So that it was a first shot at trying to figure this all out, especially on Zoom, when I think a lot of people have taken liberty to think that we have all this time in the world to be on a meeting. So I kind of wanted to chop that down and be a little bit more uniform about it. I guess when we were drawing this up, but I'm always welcome to changing stuff up that makes it easier for other committees. This is what's worked for us. I know it doesn't work for other committees, but I think it's kind of worked for us mostly. Do I still take other questions of people who may not have signed up by 7 o'clock? I do. I do have that discretion. So if I feel other people need to chime in from the community, I'll do that. But I try to keep it as uniform as possible. That's my explanation for it. I remember talking to Michelle at length about it when we were putting it together, and then she put this wonderful thing together months ago for us, and it's been working for us, but I know what works for us may not necessarily work for other committees. That's my 2 cents chime in.
Okay, the next person. Next was Alex.
To Clint, because I think Clint is great. He's the person who runs Zoom for me, so I think he's the best. Just thought I'd put that out there. He says all this and he posts something to give explanations to everybody. For our meetings, when they do last a long time, I don't know that it's practical, like Trevor, for us to have a deadline by which people can sign up, because sometimes they just come a little later because the agendas are somewhat longer. And sometimes they're telling me in advance, if they're people who speak on a number of things a month, they'll tell me that they're coming a little later, and ask if I'm hearing anything out of order. Because sometimes attorneys do ask me if they can, because of conflicts, because they may have other meetings at other community boards the same night. They ask me if they can come first or come a little later, to sort of organize how they're being heard in their meetings. There are multiple meetings per night. The other thing I would add is I have had instances in the past 2 months, I've had many people sign up to speak, and that has been a little difficult to manage. And I think what we do in real meetings as opposed to virtual meetings is when we have a group like Paul mentioned, an identifiable group where many people are coming as part of that group, we ask for 1 or 2 or 3 speakers to speak on behalf of the group. And certainly there's going to be somebody who maybe associates themselves with the group but has a very distinct reason for wanting to speak separately, and that's fine. But I think we should also try to include perhaps something about, if you are appearing as a group, if you're able to, we'd like you to pick 1 or 2 speakers to cover your points. And then we'll make a record of how many people are present on behalf of that group for or in opposition to a particular item. And then the one other thing is I actually do the public before the committee questions, because a lot of times the public's complaints about conditions in the neighborhood or particular applications will give some guidance to the committee about the technical things that they may ask of the applicant. So if they're approving something, what the stipulations might be and how they would actually be affected. So the part about raising your hand after the committee questions doesn't apply to me, although certainly I have called on a person or persons who has a question or questions after we've gone through the process of hearing from people. And that's less usual, but after the process of hearing from people and then hearing from the applicant and asking questions of the applicant. So I'm just pointing that out because not all committees are the same, I guess, in terms of their order.
Okay, thank you, Alex.
I mean, I'm certainly happy with trying to have everybody sign in by a certain time. I just, that hasn't been the practice, like my experience, and Clint does what Michael does, which is that periodically he asks people, he notes if people he's letting people in, and he asks people to sign in, write their affiliation, and write whether or not they want to speak in the chat box.
Okay, thank you. Mei Lee?
Yeah, so I too have a very good, my committee also has an excellent Zoom facilitator, I would like to say. I think all the Zoom facilitators on this board are excellent. But we haven't had, we also have this procedure, they should sign up to speak in the chat box if they want to. It's mainly been people who just want to make community announcements. It's nothing having to do with the agenda and what we usually do is if people do have something to say about an agenda item, that they just be part of the discussion, part of the Q&A. So they listen to the presentation, the board members usually get to go first, but the members of the public always have an opportunity to participate. So everyone seems to be happy with that now. And they actually, they get to say more that way, or as much as they would have if they just got up and made a speech in the beginning. So that's worked for us so far. And hopefully it will continue to work for us.
Okay, May, thank you. Linda, and then Jackie and Lisa, in that order.
Okay, so Landmarks Committee as one example, and I would bet some of the subcommittees are another, where they're pretty small and they operate on a less formal basis. And I've never felt necessary to ask people to sign up by 7 in order to speak. They just raise their hand and speak. So I would like, this middle yellow part, which I think you made that way for a reason, to be kind of, flexible so that each committee can do it their own way.
Okay, Jackie?
So I'm not under the pressure to say Linda is the best Zoom master, but she is the best because she not only does land use, but also does a nature subcommittee. So I think in that sense, Linda is the best. And I also want to emphasize that the bullet number 3, the third bullet, I wonder if we could emphasize that we don't want the participants to use the chat to discuss agenda items. Maybe we can add a little. Yep, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie.
That's a big problem.
Lisa?
I guess I'm just wondering, maybe I missed this part, why we need to commit this to writing. Last month when we discussed how this is going to be treated by each committee, we came to the conclusion that there were various approaches at various committees and people were comfortable with that. this document is, do we have to incorporate this in this document? Maybe we just leave it the way it was. Well, maybe I missed the part about why we felt the need to commit this to writing.
No,
sorry. Oh, go ahead. Oh, what I said, I'll repeat. I suggested that we need to have a standard operating procedure at the highest level, or I would say like the most standard like levels across the board for the community to understand what the expectations of them are. And as Susan said, a lot of the other community boards are doing this, setting standards about how to run their meetings, because I think even like as a member of multiple committees, it's like a little bit of, it's not clear necessarily, you know, like what you, I'm not saying that on each meeting it's not clear, but it's just like every time it's like running something differently. And I think that it's a little weird to have committees run things very differently. That's my opinion. Like if you like didn't know what you were to be expected of when you walked into any given meeting in CB3, like that just seems a little bit difficult to me. And especially since we've learned some of the, like, I think like Trevor's point about, you know, people don't raise their hands once they've heard a lot of this stuff already. You know, that's a good learning for us to have, because so that sort of was my goal here, and why I brought it up to Alicia.
And Michelle, not only that, I mean, I'd like to comment on when the exec had training, Lisa, we had a trainer that told us basically that it would be a good standard for us to adapt, to have a basic spiel or something to say in the beginning of our meetings so that everyone was on board and everyone was very clear about how we were running things. So from time to time, I think it's important for us to revisit, you know, things change. And like you said, yes, different committees do different things, but I am also being told by other board members how unhappy they are that on various committees, things are being done differently on the different committees. So there is this, either we're going to be uniformed, right, and have a basic standard, or we're going to continue to operate in the way of our committee does this differently and our committee does this differently. I mean, like, are we all kind of like generalized in some form or fashion, or are we specifically doing our own thing? Like it has to be some type of core where we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah. I guess I feel like there is a core that we're doing things the same way. The only issue seems to be how we're recognizing input from the general public. And I don't feel like, I don't know, it's just me, but, you know, having been at various committees over the years, I feel like that kind of works, that each committee does need to have a little of its own discretion. And yeah, and in response to your first point, I think that what I heard each of the committee chairs say is, yeah, they do go through their rules at the beginning. It's just that the rules are not necessarily 100% unified, but basically they're very similar. You know, that there's a time for public members to speak. Board members to speak, and there's a time for the general public to speak.
I think the goal, Lisa, is that yes, the public has to have opportunities to speak, for sure. I think that is the most important thing about being on the community board, is that people have a place and a platform to address issues, right? But at the same time, we have people that get on our Zoom meetings and they become long-winded, like they did when they would come to committee meetings when we were public, right? When we were meeting live, and people will use the meeting as a platform to state their fact and get their point across, and they go way over 2 minutes. And so we need to be very careful about how many people are allowed to do that, and that it will dominate your meetings and it will cause your meetings to run longer than necessary. I mean, people have to get up and go to work the next morning, and people have other things that they need to do and take care of their families, when a meeting should not go over 5 hours. I don't believe that that is necessary to get a point across and to get things done in our community. I see hands. Trevor, Anisha, and Linda. Trevor.
With regards to the public speaking, Michael does a very good job of putting up the timer for even people who want to ask a question. And we generally get a lot of respect for that. I also try, and this is not something I'm recommending for these guidelines, try and get the presenter to answer the question within 2 minutes, because sometimes the answer is longer than the question. So even though they're asked a question or make a statement, we still try and limit it to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, next, Anisha.
I think this was like helpful to see. I don't actually, I have a kind of small committee and like it's maybe a little bit more informal than some of the others. But I do think it is helpful to see how all of the other chairs are putting together this list. And I think some of these things cut across all committees, obviously. I think the bigger question that Michelle raises about like how the public is expected to know how to participate. Like if you come to maybe Linda or me, you don't have to sign up at 7. If you go to others, you are expected to sign up at 7. And I think that is confusing, especially if you are trying to go to different committees as a person from the public and there isn't a standard. It doesn't matter to me what the standard is. And I frankly, it seems like everybody does do it their own way and wants to do it their own way. So maybe we won't come to an answer tonight about this, and maybe we should all continue to think about it. But I think that question about like, if I went to SLA or land use and there's different times for when I'm supposed to do stuff, it could be confusing to people.
Okay, next, Linda.
I just want to say that most of this is great. Nobody would quarrel with it. It's the things you've outlined in yellow are properly outlined in yellow. But the rest of this, I think, is what we all say in every meeting. We explain to people, when they are allowed to speak. We explain about raising your hand, which is, I've learned a trick, by the way, Alt-Y. You don't have to click raise your hand. But anyway, it's just the style in which we conduct the meetings. And I do think that it's between the small meetings and the large. Certainly in land use, we ask people to speak 2 minutes. We put a timer on them. And in landmarks, I don't need to do that. So other than that, I think everything that's not yellow, I got no quarrel with. But I don't want to have to tell people they have to sign up by 7 p.m. when they don't.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Michelle, back to you, and then
So I think that if you look at this, the first yellow highlighted part where I sort of massaged it, so it gives discretion to the chair about when they would call on the public, either like, as Alex said, she does it before committee members and some committees do it after committee members. So that's why I said the chair will indicate when you should raise your hand after the agenda item is presented. And we could just basically get rid of these two things. Sorry, Paul, because I do think that Trevor's point about like having the committee, or at least in his experience, having a lot of the questions asked ahead of time means that people don't raise their hand. And if you have them sign up ahead of time, they might just feel like they need to fill the space, as I said, people will do if they're given the time. So I think that Paul, like not having the sign up time, this would mitigate it in a lot of ways if we choose to do it like Trevor's been doing it. And then I think really the only thing that I'm just gonna X that out, the only thing then would be agreeing that we give people a 2-minute limit with discretion from the chair to extend that time. That's really the only, I think, as Linda said, probably the only thing that we might not all agree on, although I think that it's fair because people take I don't know, Paul's raising his hand, because people will just like take, like they're home, it's like a lot less like it's a lot less difficult to filibuster when you're sitting at home versus like in a, you know, a room at the Y or at the school. And, you know, these meetings also, like, we used to have the time we needed to leave, right? Like people would say like, we need to be out of here by 9:30. Like we don't have that like sort of urgency anymore. So I think saying 2 minutes with discretion from the chair to extend that time sort of like lays that ground rule with the ability to extend if necessary. So that's just I think, you know, if we could be okay with this yellow highlighted part, then everyone has a lot of discretion within that, you know, to run their committee slightly differently, but we have like some sort of communicated standards that the community understands what they're expected to do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Also, Michelle, you know, I'd add that even sometime board members, you know, go over the 2-minute marker with their comments. And we have to be very conscious of others that would like to also make comments. And, you know, and what happens is people do have a tendency to get long-winded, and it is not fair to other people that would like to comment and give, you know, input as well. Because if you're dominating the time slot of me sharing, then I'm going to back down. If I'm a new member, we have to think about, there are new members on the board that never sat on the community board before. They may feel unsure of how to say something or comment on something, and then a person takes up more than 5 to 10 minutes to make a comment, and it causes me to shy away, and I won't make a comment. You know, those are the things that we have to be conscious of also. Not just public members, but also board members, right? Okay, Mei Lee, then Trevor, and then Paul. Go ahead, May.
Oh yeah, so actually, I mean, I don't disagree with any of the stuff that's on the screen here or what's highlighted in yellow. I mean, quite frankly, if somebody really feels compelled that they have to make a speech about some item on the agenda, rather than just participate in the discussion, they should do it in the beginning of the meeting. Look, we have to budget our meetings, you know, and I'm into like trying to get people out of there by 8:30 or 9 at the latest. And like Paul, you know, I have this little like teaching thing where, you know, you have to budget your time. So I would want them to come in the beginning of the meeting, you know, between 6:30 and 7 and say their thing. And since we're on Zoom, well, they can sign off or, you know, shut their face down and come back later. So I think, I don't think that's unreasonable to ask them to be there by 7 if they want to do that. Yeah, so that's all I have to say, that, you know, and I think there is you know, this is not, I mean, I think this still leaves us a lot of leeway to kind of like naturally lead a meeting. And in general, I try to run the meeting as if we were in the room. So yeah, everything is as if we were in the room. It's the same thing. So people are typing in the chat box, you know, we actually just ignore it, or, you know, tell them, you know, to stop talking so loudly to themselves, because that's sort of what it feels like. And if they have something to say, they should say it verbally out loud to us. So, you know, so it's this thing that we are doing. So it's, you know, so we haven't had a lot of problems with any of this so far.
Okay, thank you, May. I'm going to just say, after Paul's comment, we're going to come to a conclusion because we'll be going on, and it's 8 o'clock now. Okay, so Trevor and then Paul.
I think this is fine. I would either suggest removing with discretion from the chair to extend that time, or changing that language, because what happens is you extended the time for one person, you didn't extend the time for another person. Are you discriminating against me? Why not? If discretion is allowed, and the chair can do it from the seat, I feel uncomfortable putting that in print.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Okay, Paul, you're our last comment on this.
That's fine. I'm okay with giving up my 7 p.m. I now have to take back Michelle being the best Zoom master as a result of it, but it's fine. I get it. As long as the chairs can be able to, I don't want to say control everything, but have that discretion to end like public comments on a certain topic, because it just keeps going on and on and on and on and on again. Like that's my thing, is as long as I'm not ruffling feathers at the end of the process with the community or the committee members.
Mhm. Got it, understood. Okay, so Michelle, do you have any final, the document is what it is, guys, everyone look it over. And how we will implement this, I guess the Zoom person, the person running the Zoom meeting will say it at the very beginning of the meeting as usual, as you guys normally give your input. And Lisa, is this a comment about this or?
Yeah, I'm just not sure how we were going to be using this. Is this going to be like posted to the general public? I'm wondering if we should make it clear that some of these statements are addressed only to public, members of the public, not to board members.
Mm.
And I'm sorry, Alicia, to break in. I had my hand raised for like 10 minutes and you.
I'm sorry.
I didn't see your hand.
So, well, I can't raise it on the computer. I can only do this. So,
Okay.
But I think that, we tried this, you know, we've been down this road before. Linda started, you know, with a document like this that I then updated and changed and we sent to all the chairs, and, you know, we've been down this road before, so we can try it again. But I think to your point of what you said earlier, Alicia, this all goes back to the training that we did with the chairs, and that, you know, facilitating meetings live is very different than facilitating meetings online. And, you know, the biggest challenge is we can start using this document and we can show this on the screen as, you know, before the meeting gets started. But what happens 20 minutes into the meeting when a whole group of 10 other people join? What happens an hour into the meeting when another group of 10 people join? They didn't see this information. They don't know how the meeting's running. So, you know, if we're going to do something like this and we're going to, you know, try to get all of the chairs to run the meetings the same way, or run, you know, the structure of the meeting the same way, then we need to come up with something that we're comfortable with posting online for people to see, so that there's somewhere that Susan can refer people to say, this is how committees are going to run.
I could put it right with the statement about, you know, you don't have to sign up, you know, ahead of time for the committees. I would just say, when I did poll the other boards, a number of boards limit signups to like around 7:15.
Okay, so should we vote to adapt this or add it to our website as what would be a common, a standard?
This doesn't say anything about 7, does it?
It doesn't say, we took the 7 o'clock off.
It's a guideline.
Yeah, it's just a guideline. So,
so if there's nothing about 7, there's nothing I need to put on the website. Is that correct?
Well, this was just suggested by Michael, Susan, that we put it somewhere where the public you can refer the public to it. Right?
I just think that if we're, you know, this is great, and I applaud Michelle for taking this on. We've tried it before, both Linda and I. And, you know, I think if we're going to try it, if we're going to do it, then the chairs need to be okay with it being a standard and being made public. Because if we just use this as an internal document and it's only posted on the screen for the first 5 or 10 minutes of a meeting, it's not helping anything. Because as Trevor said earlier, our parks meetings are a minimum of 3 hours long. And a lot of people join them late because they join them when they think the agenda item that they want to be there for is going to be on. And it also, you know, the other problem is, and we've experienced it even tonight, people drop in and out of a meeting. They leave Zoom open. They go, you know, I went and had dinner. I went to the bathroom twice, you know, and I came back and I'm sure, you know, I don't know what I missed, but I'm not going to disrupt the meeting and say, hey, can you rewind for me? But some people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could do that though, right? We could post these standards online and then we could always just in the meeting refer to it, drop the link in, you know, that kind of thing. I just was Googling, is there a way to pin a message on Zoom? There apparently is not. People are saying that they just continuously post it in the chat, which I've like in other Zoom meetings, people do too. So it's unfortunate Zoom won't let us do that, but it just is like a good, if you put it online, we could just have a touch point, like just like, here's the link, here's the link, here's the link kind of thing.
What I can do, I mean, this is too much to put on, you know, the website, but what I could do is say, you know, have a click on right below where it says, you know, you don't have to
PDF
sign
or
up.
something.
Yeah, and have a click on that says, you know, click here for public speaking and something about guidelines for speaking at committee meetings.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see Herman wrote a comment right now in the chat, and he says that he agrees with Lisa's statement. Maybe the list should be considered as guidelines. Yes, we just said that. Of a uniform code of behavior, the length of meeting depends on the committee chair as to how long discussions on any one item is entertained. How long one person allowed to speak, how one person is allowed to speak. Chairs must have the leeway to operate depending on what is happening at the time and how relevant the information. Thank you, Herman. Thank you, Mr. Hewitt. Thank you. Okay, so I think there's enough discussion about that. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Michelle. This was very great. This is good. Good conversation. Okay, now we're going to go on to the request. Oh, I'm sorry. Olympia made a comment. This is going back now in our agenda. Olympia wanted to say something about sending phone numbers with lists. She wants to comment on sending phone numbers with lists. What was the comment?
That was about the CB3 membership list, but we've decided that we're only going to send emails and phone numbers. But I think Olympia also had said that the thing about giving chairs discretion to change, which we've discussed, and said that we can do that from the, as Trevor said, from the bench, but not on paper.
Yeah.
Did you want me to allow Olympia to speak, Alicia?
Yeah, I think she can have, yeah. Olympia, please comment, please 2 minutes, because it's now 8:17, okay? Thank you. Go ahead, let her in.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I asked that we share only emails and offer to people opt-in if they want to share their phone with everybody, because in the past we had an instance of harassment, especially for younger female members, like having the phone can be a bit too much. Everybody can access each other in the community board by an email, and then if we feel comfortable, we can share mobile phone. But I think the home address and phone number may be a bit too much, because if somebody wants to communicate with us, they can reach us with an email, and we can then feel comfortable sharing the rest. Otherwise, it feels a little bit like an invasion of privacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Olympia. Okay.
So what is the resolution on that?
That we would just have emails
Has
only.
everybody decided that, or that's what the whole exec is deciding?
I would prefer it with phone and email. That's what we talked about.
Yeah, me too.
Correct, and making the distinction that the phone and email is for committee members.
For the
For
board
board
members,
members.
right, yeah.
For
And it's
Board
for
members,
board
for
business.
board members.
Board members only.
I'm
I'm not
don't know,
anticipating.
Susan and Lisa, you've been around a lot longer than I have, the two of you, and Mr. Hewitt, you also. Was there ever a problem with female board members being harassed?
So there was one, Olympia shared the name with me, and there was actually a committee member. I didn't know that person harassed her, but he harassed me and often copied others. I don't know that that's happened other than that one time, that one person who is no longer around.
Yes, he's no longer on the board. I think I know of that person as well.
Yeah, everybody, I mean, people were very aware.
Yes, yes, and we got everyone, I mean, I think it was the whole exec got a drunken email. So, yeah, but that person is no longer around, and we do know that, maybe something could be said about that, and just let the board members know that, this is not something that is shared outside of the community board. I mean, we don't take an oath, but I know that we have a standard from the Borough President's office as to what is for the community board's use, and not for us to be given out to all the community, right? I would hope people would know that. Mei Lee?
Oh, just as a practice, I actually have the whole list because I asked for it, and it was really just from my committee because I have to outreach to my committee. So I was given the whole list. But, as you all know, I mean, all of us are involved in other community things, and, I do not use it to outreach for my other community stuff. What I do is that if I want to outreach to someone, I personally ask them and talk to them. Usually, I would see them in the auditorium and ask them about the issue, and then I proactively get their phone number and contact information individually. I don't go to the list. So, I mean, I encourage everyone to remember that too.
Thank you. Jackie?
I'm not going to talk about how we use the list, but since we're talking about the list, I want to add that there is one NYCHA subcommittee public member whose name is not on the list, and I think we need to find out this person's contact info because otherwise I won't come. Camille, yeah.
I think she is on the list, and we looked at it. I'll look at it right now.
Okay.
Because I think Ed found it. I was trying to get her phone number, then Ed found it on the list. But let me look for sure.
Thank you.
I just have one comment. I'll lower my hand after this. Is that when we're doing this, can we also make sure that list is up to date? Because I know in the past it has not been up to date when we were looking at demographics in terms of where people are, to make sure we have a representative base for community boards. So if that list is going to be sent out, just make sure it's up to date.
So as far as we know, first of all, I just checked and that person is on the list with her for full information. So as far we have one person designated for the list, and we try very hard to keep it updated every day. If you ever see something that's not updated, please let us know immediately.
Okay. All right, now we're going to move on to the next agenda on the agenda item, which is the request for CV to co-sponsor testing site with the LAS Ready.
No, we're
skipping over.
Yeah, we decided that since we're a member that we could just do that, but maybe you just want to explain what it is.
Yeah, so I believe that there is a request that we have some a day where there's some testing that will go on somewhere along Avenue B. And so I think that LES Ready said that they will co-sponsor with Community Board 3 to have this happen, which I think is an awesome idea because the lines at City MD are getting ridiculously long. People are out there at 6 in the morning trying to get a test. I'm one of them that don't want to stand on that line, but I need to go and get a test. And so, yeah, I mean, and there are other places in our district, but they're few and far between. A few people are having difficulties. And so this is really, I think is a great idea. And so, yeah.
If I could just add, so the new Test and Trace is making a big effort to do all these mobile ones. And this particular one for Avenue B, they're all going to be open to everyone. The one on Avenue B, they want to target restaurant and bar workers, their staff. And then they also want to do one on Avenue D to target NYCHA residents, but they don't have dates yet. And they will ask, and I'll present this at the full board, they are going to ask for volunteers for both outreach and day of.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. So now we're going to go into committee reports. SLA. I'm sorry?
Alicia, Michelle had her hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if anyone's wondering, I've gone to Gouverneur Health and it's been really good. If you just are giving recommendations to anyone, I mean, you have to wait outside for like an hour or whatever, but I got my results within less than 24 hours and they're super professional and know what they're doing. So just if anyone's recommending to folks where to go, I've gone to CityMD too. It's not as good. So.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. I needed that. Okay, SLA.
So I'm sorry, I'm still working on the minutes, so they're not part of the draft. There were a number of contentious items. One that I think may come up at the full board is 120 Orchard Street. The liaison for the Manhattan Borough President's Office reached out to me before the meeting, and Susan sent him the minutes and directed him to the video from last month, because this was a withdrawn item. One of the other items we heard that was contentious was another withdrawn item from last month. And multiple representatives appeared, as well as representatives of elected officials appeared, as well as Christopher Marte, and they audited the hearing. There were about 30 people speaking who were not representatives of the applicant or the applicant itself, and the applicant was comprised of four young men. So it was an application that took some time and that people had very strong feelings about. And what it comes down to essentially, just so everybody knows, is this is the location that was previously Max Fish. This was the second location for Max Fish. So they applied. Max Fish was a Lower East Side institution. The fact that it was an institution may not really speak to whether or not residents thought it was run well or managed well, but it was an institution. And when it sought to move its location because of rent issues in 2014, it was approved for this location, 120 Orchard Street. So the people who are seeking to purchase it now are people who don't have any license experience. We actually approved them in they have yet to open. They are either pending a license there or have just received their license there. And they were seeking to run what they say will be a higher scale, better managed version of what Max Fish was, which was essentially a large scale, for our area, a large scale tavern lounge with music. So there were many, and this is also just an FYI, because this is sort of endemic, I think, of what we're hearing, which is, people who say, I really want to open a business here. I really want to be supported in opening a business here. Certainly, although she didn't appear this month, she appeared last month, the person who's selling her business, who had to sell her business, right? And then juxtaposed against all the people who are saying that everything below Houston is crazy, right? There are people all over the street, there's noise, they feel unsafe. It's not that they're even complaining at this point about quality of life concerns, because those still exist, but they're complaining about health and safety issues, right? What do I do? How do I go outside? Everybody's on the street moving from business to business. People are unmasked, they're out at all hours, they're in big groups. I feel very unsafe. So we're contending sort of with all of that, and that's what we heard at this meeting. I appreciate all of those different perspectives. It was a very difficult application to hear. At the end of the day, it was denied. But I just want to give you an FYI, because I think that they will come to the full board, they will speak, and maybe they'll have people who speak on their behalf, and the elected officials may say something, or the representatives, they may say something. I don't know whether or not they will. But when they started signing in, they were asked what their intentions were, and they very clearly said they were there to audit and to hear what was going on.
If I could just add, I got some calls, a few calls about this also, that the reps were very actually insulted that people thought they were there to lobby for or against a license.
Nobody's ever come to my meeting. I've never gotten, maybe one representative every 3 years shows up at my meeting. So well, that many
came because people called them, so they came to observe and find out what was going on. But they were very clear they were not there for or against. And one of the reps, who was relatively new, kind of asked me what the procedure was, and I said, well, when residents want support, Generally, they wait till the community board votes and then they take the community board resolution to the elected officials.
I'm not saying that I thought that they were doing that, but there was something in the chat before Click cut it off, directed to them and then what their intentions were.
Alex, that's the end of your report? Thank you so much, Alex. Okay, Parks?
Still a bit weird going early. No resolutions, which was a first for us for quite some time. Although work on ESCR has started, the project is not delayed. They started with the area actually in CV6, so the progress on the park is ongoing. The Pier 42 and Brooklyn Montgomery Coastal Resiliency Project will also be starting soon. Basic line is that the entire coastline is under some form of rehab, reconstruction, or redoing in some format. A lot of work, a lot of things that need to be done, but it's all in the name of coastal resiliency.
Thank you, Trevor. And Trevor, were you able to listen in this morning?
Yes, I did go to Borough Board. No one told me it started at 8:30 and would last for at least 2 hours. I give Michael a lot of credit. I did the best that I could. It's my first one, so they mainly talked about the resiliency text amendment, which we did here a couple nights ago in land use, and I'm sure Jackie will give a brief update on that. But that was the main discussion.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, next, transportation. You are hot.
It's me. All right.
You're hot this month too.
Just a little bit. We did pass three resolutions. One in regards to the protected bike lane on Avenue C, potentially coming up. We did ask for the DOT to come back with an update on their plan with the things we'd asked for, and especially reaching out to residents and businesses on Avenue C who may not have really known about this new plan. We also did pass the bike corral on Houston Street by Whole Foods, and there was an Amazon representative there. So we put Amazon on the hook to make sure they are responsive to Community Board 3 in these kinds of matters. But we did pass the bike corral. We finally kind of got around to a resolution around the open restaurants area around on Avenue B between Second and Fourth, and how the safety conditions are there or lack thereof, and enforcement of those conditions, and getting those restaurants to buy in. Basically, they seem to just do whatever they want, not creating emergency lanes and making it very difficult for emergency personnel to get through. So we took a stand on that and said, hey, no, it's time to start enforcing a lot of this going on. Susan mentioned earlier in her report about a lot of the open street issues coming our way to transportation. And it's been a lot over the past several months because of the pandemic. That's what's made us such a hot committee this year, is the open streets issues. Considering there are so many things going on with open streets, Susan and I did talk about this a little while ago. I know Community Board 2, I think, is going to do this as well, or has done it already. I'm a little unsure. With so many people involved and affected by the open streets and the potential legislation of making it permanent at some point, we are going to ask City Council as well as Community Board 3 to co-sponsor a town hall instead of putting it as an agenda item. We think it's one major issue that needs everybody's input. So that's the route we're going to go with it, because it's such a big issue that comes to committee with so many people coming out for it. And businesses are affected, restaurants, everybody, different people, everyone's affected by it to a certain degree. And we do feel that, City Council should provide this town hall format. We should sponsor it as well. I think that's the best route to take. CB2's done it. I think it's good thing for us to do it, so we have more people involved in saying what needs to be said, especially if they're thinking about making this permanent. I don't know if Susan wants to add anything onto that or not.
Just what I found out today is that we were concerned it was legislation would be passed very quickly, but it turns out there's a lot of legal issues, and Carlina's office has committed that once they know that it is possible to go ahead, that the next step would be outreach. So this should actually be helpful. And also we had about a coalition of about 5 or 6 different East Village community groups send an email saying that they would like this to be an agenda item. I think they'll be perfectly happy with the
Susan, I don't think we can hear you.
Susan, you went on mute.
I'm sorry. So I've been talking a half hour. You heard nothing?
We heard you up until the point where you said that you thought they'd be happy if this.
Oh, okay. So I think they'd be very happy with the town hall. I thought I was going to have to repeat everything. But I want to emphasize, you cannot imagine what a huge issue this is. And I think it's also a huge issue for the businesses, and the businesses should come, because as I mentioned, they are getting horrible guidance. And, you know, they need to know what to do, and the businesses and the communities need to hear each other also. So I just think it's a great idea. Paul, shall I add planning for this to the December agenda?
Sure.
Okay.
And I know the aim is for January for this
Right.
Town hall, but it is even too big for an agenda item for us. It's much larger than what we have in our small, humble committee. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, economic development.
We had quite an eventful meeting in economic development. I will start with the economic development portion and then go into the arts and culture portion. So for economic, we heard 3 resolutions. One of them was specific to economic development and to support and other grants for small businesses to help them winterize outdoor spaces as part of, you know, like outdoor dining, et cetera. We had a presentation from the Department of Buildings that sort of went over the guidelines that they have, kind of with DOT and kind of not, for, you know how it is, for restaurants that have the structures outside in order for them to provide heat. And so DOB did their presentation, and I think the feedback generally from the committee and from members of the public was that it was really expensive and sort of convoluted and a real burden to a lot of already struggling businesses. So we wrote this resolution that was really to, you know, support grants and other assistance for winterizing these spaces. We also heard 2 resolutions from the Arts and Culture Subcommittee that they had approved in their October subcommittee meeting. And because of the timing of how their subcommittee meets after the Economic Development Committee meeting does in the month, you know, they approved it in October and it came to November. One of them passed and one of them did not get approved by the Economic Development Subcommittee. The first resolution that was approved was about, you know, support for arts and culture workers. I forgot what it's called. Resolution to, you know, start a WPA style program to employ artists, and that city funding from a number of various agencies direct money towards arts and culture organizations, institutions, initiative, because that sector is hurting so badly. And then the second resolution from Arts and Culture, which was more controversial, was in support of proposed legislation with the City Council Intro 2068 2020, which was proposed by Councilman Van Bramer, which is essentially it's like open streets, but for cultural use. I think there was a lot of miscommunication about this particular resolution. The folks that came to speak about it from the public and had comments about it were really folks that brought quality of life concerns around noise, because the specific resolution really focused on the issue of noise. And ultimately, there just wasn't enough information from the Arts and Culture Subcommittee about some of the concerns that the public and also Economic Development Committee members raised. So it ended up being a tied vote. And Carolyn and I have spoken about how to move that resolution forward, because it is something that the Arts and Culture Subcommittee believes is important to their work. And so we will be having a joint Economic Development and Arts and Culture meeting during the usual Economic Development slot in December to really focus on getting clarity around this issue and revise this resolution. Are there any questions? Sorry, that was a lot.
Anisha, there's Herman asked or put a comment in the chat. He says, who's legally responsible for liability issues if citizens are harmed by these structures, the city or the business operators?
I believe it's the business operators, and I think that's one of the things that is Alex here. Is that right? Yes. I
think that actually came up, didn't it?
I think so. And I think we included in the resolution that we wanted grants to help sort of, besides winterize, heating equipment or whatever, to help create some stability of these structures, since there are a lot of unstable structures floating around our community.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So any other statements, any other hands? Okay. Thank you, Anisha. Okay, Health and Human Services.
Hi, so, we had our committee meeting and we talked a lot about, well, one of the things we did at the end of the meeting before it adjourned was talk about, future items agenda items that we want to put on our committee. And a couple of them will come up at the next committee meeting. One is just about senior services that DFTA is providing, within this pandemic, some kind of thing that they have with Thrive. They'll be sending volunteers to, I don't know, to provide some services to seniors. So, many of some of the the nonprofits like the Norks have received emails about this, but they don't really know what's going on. So we're going to get a presentation. And then the other issue was about the other end of the age spectrum, which is the students in school, particularly the students who are in special ed and also the District 75 schools. They're not, seems like, they're supposed to be this like regular testing thing going on, but they're not being tested. We're not clear why. So we're going to get a presentation from the Citywide Council on special ed, as well as the Citywide Council on District 75 schools, and we'll get more information. The other thing is that I attended a meeting of the Mount Sinai Beth Israel Task Force. It was a few weeks ago, so it had not met since the shutdown, and so I met for the first time for a very long time. So it was facilitated by by Gail Brewer's office. So we learned their whole leadership team was there, the Beth Israel leadership team. And we learned that, like many other hospitals, they treated many patients. There was about 8,000 patients total. That's the whole Mount Sinai system. And we learned that they will be reevaluating their entire plan. There's, as of a few weeks ago, they said they were starting discussions. They haven't discussed everything. So everything is being reevaluated. And they expect to let us know more. There was no date as to when they would let us know more, but it's not going to be like a few years later. It'll be, they have to get going on their reevaluation. So that's all we know, and we will want to know more about what it will mean for us.
Wow. Thank you, May. Okay. Thank you, May. Land use?
We did pass a resolution on the zoning for coastal flood resilience citywide zoning text amendment, as Trevor mentioned before. We denied that application. However, our resolution does not state the reasons why we denied that. On Tuesday, we just didn't have enough time in this land use meeting to add the reasons. And this text amendment application is just very extensive and technical. I believe the Borough President's Office will seek our comments on this plan. Maybe they have already did that at the Borough Board meeting that Trevor attended. I don't know. So I wanted to propose in the full board that we bring the topic back to December land use meeting, just to add the reasons. And we don't need to change the position. We have 4 other land use members on exec. So I also want to hear from their opinion on that. Do they also support to bring the topic back to a land use meeting to add the reasonings?
I agree.
Thank you, Linda.
I would agree also, and there wasn't much guidance at Borough Board other than it was complex and challenging to bring this land use item with everything else that's going on. So I would agree.
Thank you, Trevor.
They've asked me for comments already.
Okay. The application is really lengthy, highly technical, very complex, has a lot of information. I think it would be fair for the land use committee member to spend some time before the meeting to digest deeper, especially after DCP gave us a very good presentation at the last land use meeting. So I feel like we should spend more time on it. And we don't need to change the position. We just need to explain our reasonings.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear that it's kind of, I would be comfortable. I definitely agree that we should spend more time on it and give more information. But for me, it's not just reasons for opposing it. I want to give a little bit more context about it, too, because I think there's good things about it too, and I think we should include those as well as the negatives.
Thank you, Lisa. Herman.
Could I add one comment on that? And this is something I think Alex would be concerned about. Issue for our community for a very, very, very long time has been grandfathered commercial spots in residential areas, particularly mid-block. So you have a 4 a.m. bar and a mid-block residential. And this plan would extend the time. So right now, if a space is vacant for 2 years, it reverts back to housing, which we need, and cures the zoning non-compliance, which does cause conflict. So I think since that's we did deal with that issue in the 2008 rezoning, and I think since it's part of the plan, I would ask the board to consider, since this is something that impacts our community, to comment on that issue.
Thank you, Susan. And I'll make sure that we add that to the reso. And on the 70 Mulberry Street issue, so they already finished the second round community engagement, and the consultant is working on the final report, which is expected to be available sometime in December. But I don't have the time yet. I'll try to find out next week. Hopefully, I'll get some information before the full board. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay, landmarks.
Got a hand up from Alex.
Oh, Alex, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
I was just gonna say, as a corollary to what Susan said, and I can't remember if we ever voted on it or commented on it, but we heard it in economic development use, and there were a lot of opinions about what should happen in addition to mine, but there were a lot of opinions about whether or not anything should happen with respect to the grandmother non-compliant use on residential side streets. Susan, do you remember whether
I do, but
we ever voted?
But what this is doing is saying, okay, if it's vacant for 2 years, it's not changing that, but it's just extending that 2 years by the time of the pause. So it could be 4 years instead of 2 years.
That is correct. Adding another 2 years.
No, up to 2 years.
Up to 2 years. So it's taking a 2-year time period and adding up to 2 years on it. And I know we have taken position in the 2008 rezoning. I know we took a position on that.
Okay.
You've got a hand by Trevor.
Real quick question, Jackie, are we also asking for city planning to come back? I'm only saying this because the presentation at Borough Board really focused more on Manhattan, whereas the one we saw had other boroughs. Not that we don't need to understand other boroughs, but there aren't too many single family homes that need to be raised 30 feet. So I'm not suggesting that we bring back city planning, but I think it'd be helpful if they had a rep, because the presentation I saw this morning was a bit different than what we saw at Linus.
And Trevor, I agree with you. In fact, I want to bring them back for certain questions. And like especially, I feel like adding the floor exemption to 1 to 3 families will be very different from larger developments in our area. So I want to understand the technical side of it. So I'll try to reach out to them to ask them to.
Could we ask?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, could we ask them to post that Manhattan-based presentation too?
I can get that, and I'll find out tomorrow if they can come back and let them know that you'll be making up a list of questions for them.
Okay, I see no more comments. Linda?
We did not meet.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, NYCHA Section 8 Subcommittee. So Jackie, you want to talk a little bit about that?
So this month we don't have a meeting, and we are expecting to have a meeting in December. And this past Tuesday, I reported what we had in October to the Land Use Committee meeting. This is just a formality because NYCHA Subcommittee is supposed to report to Land Use. And one thing that we need to continue to work on is the town hall idea brought up in the October NYCHA meeting. And but what we need to do is that it's just a procedure, because I think that idea was very well received in the NYCHA subcommittee meeting. However, we didn't pass any resolution or decision. There was no voting on that. So I think we need to have a vote in the subcommittee that we wanted to do this town hall meeting. And then it would be great if we could assign someone from that subcommittee maybe to work with the district office on the logistic agenda, that kind of thing. And then so we can have a framework to discuss what we want to do with this town hall.
I agree with you, Jackie.
Can you tell me by Monday? I have it on this vague agenda item on for town hall. Can you tell me by Monday the topic of the town hall so I can put that on the agenda?
I'll follow up on that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Arts and culture, we already talked about. Chinatown neighborhood. Yeah, go ahead, Anisha.
Just a couple things specifically related to arts and culture. I'll also let Carolyn say something about the town hall that she's planning. But one thing I did want to raise is this issue about like timing for the arts and culture subcommittee, just to have it out there that, you know, they do meet after economic development in the month, and therefore, you know, when they pass resolutions, it is a delay by a month. So, you know, I hope that it is something that we can work out so that that subcommittee has the ability to work more efficiently and get done what they want to get done. And then also in their subcommittee meeting, I think one of the big initiatives that they are thinking about is a town hall. And I think Carolyn is on this if she wants to talk about it a little bit.
Right. We very much feel the arts and culture community is suffering really badly right now. Right now, the expectation is that Broadway would reopen in June. All these people who worked in the arts industry are out of work. One of the reasons behind the resolution that we wanted to present was a way of allowing arts and culture organizations to have visibility and to do performances on the street. The other thing that we felt that we need to draw attention to the needs of the arts and culture community. Our neighborhood is so filled with organizations that employ and engage artists, and also our community and provide services, that we need to draw attention to their needs and stuff, their support from the city. What we were proposing with the town hall is that we would ask the town hall to be co-sponsored by the council person or perhaps the city council with the arts and culture committee. And that we wanted to reach out to them to find out if they would be interested in doing that, because it is something that's like dire need for people in this neighborhood. A lot of them live here, and they're basically, their livelihood has just been decimated. And it's something that we all need to think about. It's also something that will impact greatly on our neighborhood in the long run. It's estimated that it will take 3 to 5 years for the arts and culture community to recoup from the losses that they're suffering right now. Organizations are not going to be able to pay their rent. Okay, they need to find a way that they can actually do what their business is, to perform. So at any rate, that's what we wanted to pitch to the exec, is that you would approve us reaching out to the council person and to the cultural committee on the New York City Council to see if they would be interested in co-sponsoring this town hall, because we think it's something that impacts greatly on our neighborhood, and not just on our neighborhood, but across New York.
So could I ask a procedural question on this? We've never brought a town hall to the exec, and I don't believe we've even generally voted on them in the past. It was just like, you know, it was decided like an agenda item. So it would be good if the, you know, like with Jackie just said, we're going to have a town hall. So I think maybe the exec should clarify. I mean, certainly the exec has never decided something. If someone was going to decide, it would be the subcommittee or the committee. But do they need to do a resolution? It's not particularly taking a policy or position.
Could I interject something?
Sure.
We were advised that it was best to bring this to exec, that, you know, that had happened in the past in terms of doing outreach to the council person, because what I've always been told by the district office is that our contacts with elected officials is to go through the district office.
So that, yeah,
That's
that-
the reason we brought it to exec.
That is true, but that has nothing to do with the exec. That's just an ordinary part of our
Can you
job.
hear
that
me
we-
or did I actually mute by
No.
accident?
Oh, we can hear
No,
you.
I heard you. You're absolutely right that the office does do that, but that is an everyday part of our job. It has nothing to do with the exec. It's something we do for every committee every day.
I don't know that it's seeking approval from exec. I think it's just providing the update that like this is something that the Arts and Culture Subcommittee is planning to do. And I think it is on the agenda for the December
Yes.
meeting.
Yes.
So the subcommittee can sort of come up with a plan and figure out who to co-sponsor with, et cetera, and then maybe coordinate with you, Susan, or whomever, the best way to go about reaching out to those folks to schedule time for the town hall.
I can just interject. Sorry, Alicia, go ahead.
I wanted to ask a clarification question. So Susan, Arts and Cultural Subcommittee has their meeting after the economic development. Why is that?
Because economic development is on the first day that you need 1 week, you need to post the meeting one week before the first meeting for open meeting law. We post the meeting the day after the full board. Economic development is the first meeting. If they want to change, you can't have the subcommittee meet before the first meeting. So you can change the economic development to later in the month, and that would solve the problem.
I don't think it needs to be necessarily decided right now, but I think just like if we could think about it for January or going forward or whatever, that is certainly an issue that keeps on coming.
Yeah, it is.
So you need to change, you will need to change the committee meeting because you're the first meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Nisha, because I think that it's important.
Can I make a suggestion? What about if we switched and you had arts and culture on the first Wednesday and economic development on the first Monday that was available? It's actually the second Monday of the month. That would solve the issue.
So you want to talk to your committee about that?
And I'll talk to my committee about it too.
But I would like the exec to clarify, because different committees have different ideas about the idea, do we have to vote on the idea of having a committee, having a town hall or not? Because we have.
Sorry, I wanted to jump in here because I was the one that gave Carolyn that bad advice, because I was running the Zoom for her meeting. And so she asked what the process was. And I only went off of the town hall that you helped me with, Susan, that we did on workers' rights and whatnot. And I mentioned to her, well, I brought it up in exec and we talked about it in exec and then we just did it. So, so that's why Carolyn's here. It's my fault.
Okay, so if I could just say that the difference is that was a separate town hall that didn't come out of any committee, as opposed to a committee saying, you know, this is how we're handling this agenda item. But again, that's what I think you prove the point that we all need clarification.
Right, but the other thing that's involved with it is because we did it was suggested that we involve the council person or the New York City Council and asking them to co-sponsor. That contact with elected officials goes through the district office. So how do we handle that? Please
So
clarify.
I'm happy, that we can do it differently with different committees. I'm happy to, I think we should talk offline on that.
Okay.
And
I just want clarification on it. So,
Sure.
that
we just want to make sure that it's efficient. And, let's talk offline on how to do that.
All right, fine. When is a good time to speak?
I don't know right now. Can we email tomorrow?
Okay. Right.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it.
Well, we still haven't clarified the town hall.
Okay. For clarifications, I mean, like, do town halls need to go through the exec? I don't think so.
Do they need to be voted on?
They need a resolution in the committee, I think is what Susan.
Committee, it's fine. Yeah, let it be dealt with in committee. That's where all the hard work is done.
But but that's not what I'm asking is, does it need to be voted on or can the committee decide to do it?
Okay, May Lee has her hand up. Go ahead, May.
Well, my answer is no. The executive committee doesn't have to decide because like I said, we're not taking a position. You know, my committee actually had planned this event that was supposed to happen, but it never did because of the shutdown. We never talked to exec. You know, I mean, we're going to let them, I think we let them know about it. You know, so if you feel that the town hall is beneficial to the work of your committee and you want to invite these people like the elected, go ahead and decide and do it. I
You didn't vote on it. You didn't vote on it.
No, we didn't. No, the exec committee didn't vote on it. We just let them
No,
know.
your committee.
Your committee.
Your committee didn't vote on it. You just
Oh, no, we
decided.
didn't vote it. We talked about it and we came
Right,
to a
you just
consensus.
decided
We
to do
wanted it. Yeah, we didn't have a vote, right? And everybody wanted to do it anyway.
That's
So, and
the
we
issue.
sometimes coordinated with the office and we actually were planning to coordinate with Susan in the office about inviting some of the electeds because it makes it easier for us. So we don't have to do so much. But, you know, it's otherwise, you know, you can do it on your own too, as long as you coordinate.
So I think I'm hearing that, or my experience is that most committees decide to do it. They don't vote on it and send it to full board. And I still think it would be good for the exec to make sure all committees are on the same page for whatever it is.
Agreed. So are we clear that this is something that is going to be, we don't need to vote on this? Everyone is clear on that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So now we have Chinatown Neighborhood Planning Committee, nothing. Other business, old business, new business. Okay, have a vote to adjourn. And we have to vote, actually roll call out. Sorry, roll call. Michelle?
Thanks, Alicia.
Is this roll call and resolution?
Roll call and resolution, sorry. And a large echo.
All right, Alicia.
Yes.
Thank you. Michael Marino.
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Eric Diaz.
Yes.
Thank you. Michelle Coopersmith, yes. Herman Hewitt, if you want to just put in the chat.
He says yes.
Okay, thank you. Anisha Stephen.
Yes.
May Lee.
Yes.
Jackie Wong.
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Yes.
Alexandra Militano.
Yes.
Thank you. Trevor Holland.
Wait a minute, what are we voting on? Just kidding, just kidding.
Oh my God. But is it yes?
Yes, that's a very inside joke.
I know exactly. I know exactly
No, you
what that is.
don't. My vote is yes.
I know who it is.
Paul Rangel.
Yes.
Thank you. Next month we can guess who you're talking about. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you all. May we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thank you all. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll see you on Tuesday night. Election
See ya.
night. Peace.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.